Hey everybody, video here for you this morning. I will get this uploaded a little later today. We're going to document an Olmec site called Tres Zapotes down here in Mexico. This is a site that doesn't really have impressive pyramids or anything, but it's pretty important. Here's a small city today, and these ruins are out here. But let's just go down here. First of all, they do have a museum down here. Here's a neighborhood down here, and you can find a few videos on this place on YouTube from this site here. But in this museum here, they have one of the large Olmec heads. We'll talk about that in a second. The first thing I do with the very ancient site is just check out what is straight to the east, where the sun would rise on the spring equinox. And here, it would rise right over the tip of the mountain here. I don't think that's a coincidence. Let's just read about something that happened 150 years ago. Here it says, on a sweltering day in 1862 at the foot of the Tuxtla Mountains in the Mexican state of Veracruz, a farm worker was clearing a cornfield when he hit something hard and smooth, lodged in the earth. He thought it was the rounded base of an iron cauldron buried upside down, and it being the 1860s, he reported the find to the owner of the hacienda he worked for. The farm worker's boss told him to dig up the cauldron immediately and bring it to him. As the farm worker labored, he soon realized that he had found not an iron bowl, but a gargantuan stone sculpture with a pair of glaring eyes and a broad nose and a downturned mouth. What had appeared to be the base of the cauldron was actually the top of a helmet. First discovered in 1862, these heads are a bit of a mystery. A lot of us have seen these before. Another one found in 1939 here by M.W. Sterling. This is what you're looking at here. These Olmec heads are a mystery. They have a helmet on. There's another look right there. There are no pyramids here, but here are the mounds. And these look very much like the Mound Builder's mounds coming from the ancient United States. I mean, not just a little bit like them, but really exactly like them. They really only had earth to use, kind of like the Mound Builders. But it says, when Poole arrived at Tres Zapotes in 1996, he was the first archaeologist in over 40 years to take a serious interest in the site. Tres Zapotes had been recognized as an important Olmec center since shortly after the discovery of the colossal head. In the decades to follow, it yielded a plethora of intricate figurines and stone monuments, including another colossal head. But important details of the site's history remained unknown, including its size and how long it had been occupied. Here is a look at an Olmec Stela from Venta, pretty famous one, carrying the handbag there. Is he carrying knowledge forward? Is that what that depicts? A lot of different interpretations. But they say when Venta collapsed around 400 BC, a lot of the people from Venta, this famous Olmec site, moved to Tres Zapotes. We'll look at a few of the things found at the site here. It says early in the city's history, offerings such as ceramic vessels were buried with the rich and powerful. Interesting face there. The swirl design seen in Nazca and in a lot of petroglyphs around the world. Here's a look at an ancient stela coming from the site here. What is left of it? What does this depict? Well, this is pretty interesting. People say this is the most interesting depiction found at the site here. Let's just read. There's a guy named Poole who's in this article. He says the most elaborate monument he's found from the late formative period shows a ruler emerging out of the cleft of a brow of a monster to connect the underworld, the earth, and the sky. This reasonably represents the ruler as the axis mundi, or the central axis of the earth, says Poole. Here is a vessel from the site. They say this dates back probably about 2,300 years. The Olmec, where did they come from? Well, they say they sprang out of an early agricultural group that went back to 5000 BC, but there's no solid answers here. There's a vessel, over 2,000 years old for sure. Here's a large stela that was found by Matthew Sterling in 1939, same guy who found the giant head. It says this stela was carved from basalt, with one side showing an Olmec-style engraving that has been variously characterized as an abstract jaguar or ruler on a throne. On the other side was the oldest Mesoamerican long count calendar date yet unearthed. And I guess they found The other side of this, or the other half of this, in 1969, about 30 years later than this was originally found. What we call the Mayan calendar certainly goes back to the Olmec period, and this kind of proves that. It's a calendar that comes from a much earlier period of knowledge. How far back does it go? Well, that's a good mystery. And of course, this was made famous around December 21st, 2012, when people interpreted it as the end of the world. But actually, that was just start of a new phase, a new change in the world, and we are still in that today. The changing time and period, and then we are still in that today. Certainly a silly prediction from way in the past. If you read about the Olmecs and the Mayans, it seems they're intermixed in a lot of areas, and it's kind of a gray area, and it's confusing how these Mayans kind of grew out of the Olmec culture. But the Olmec culture, how far back does that go? Well, people say people were at Tres Zapotes since about 1000 BC, and then the structures there got built over the next centuries. But you really wonder how far back some of these sites really go. The site seemed to be important to Venta. People moved here, but here is that head that was found a long time ago. And here, I believe it sits in the museum in the city here today. Those of you who have followed me now for a long time know I've stated for a long time that there's could be a connection between the Mayans and the mound builders, but now I wonder if it goes back farther in time. The Olmecs seem to build very mound builder like mounds. Some of those look very familiar. These Olmec heads, do they have any connection to the mound builders? And these helmets they were wearing, well, here is an effigy pipe. Sometimes I wonder, do these ancient mounds coming from the Olmec, right here, have any connection to the ancient mounds in the United States? Right here. I'm not sure, but it's certainly an interesting thing to think about. That is my video on an ancient Olmec site, probably a sacred alignment to a mountain there. That was a site I wanted to cover. Important discoveries were made a long time ago. I've talked about the Olmec recently. I'll talk about them again. Hope you thought that was cool. You all have. Very safe.